Welcome to New Dad Gaming, a show about gaming, being new to fatherhood, and what fatherhood means for gaming. The quick play and the long story play. Quick game hits or long involved playthroughs. Between our new commitments and exhaustion, how do these games work into your new life? So, the thought of playing these massive, sprawling games, 100 plus hours, and how on earth you'd probably get into them, or can you be satiated with these tiny little hits like apps and other things on your phones and such? Just off the top, we should probably introduce ourselves. My name is Trevor. I have a 3-month-old.
My name is Gavin. I have a just 1 month old. Yeah.
My name's Jeff. I have a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old.
Perfect. Smooth like butter for the start.
Crispy butter.
So starting, so the prospect of starting a massive, huge game amongst all these responsibilities that we have, like the thought of having a kid especially now that I have a 3-month-old and trying to put in 100 hours into the new Final Fantasy that's going to come out, I just can't possibly think of it. And I haven't currently within the 3 months. I have not been able to put anything into a game substantial whatsoever. I've played a little bit of this game called The Crew, which is a this weird driving MMO from Activision. Really, no MMO parts of it I really played. It's really just these fun little bits that I'm able to do. So for me, it's kind of a crossover. I could try to pour in a bunch more hours. I'm not going to. Gavin, have you been able to play anything substantial with your 1-month-old?
I wouldn't really say substantial. I'm able to get about an hour or so in every so often. Usually, I'll sneak some gaming time in when her and my wife are down for a nap, and I'm too loaded with caffeine to join them. That's usually when I'm like, okay, here's a great opportunity. There's no dishes that need to get done or no secondary chores around the house that need to get handled. It's just me wide awake with a belly full of coffee and a quiet living room, and that's usually when I'll find myself able to get about an hour or so in. Definitely no marathon sessions like when I was a teenager, but able to get some time.
Yeah, but are you finding like that? How is that working for you as far as just doing it an hour at a time? Are you walking away from that play session satisfied? Is it enough? Is it daunting, the thought of how much more you're going to have to play to get the full story of the game?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to point out that officially Trevor won the bet.
For anybody who'd like to participate, every week we'll be running a poll on the New Dad Gaming website to see which father will be interrupted first by their young kids. Gavin has officially lost the first week.
Yay.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Way to go, Gav.
Oh, wow, that's good too.
Yeah, I'll be right back, guys.
That sounds great. So actually,
That's a perfect point, though. Those are the responsibilities that have to happen, right? So to play a long 80-hour game, 40 to 80-hour game, you're going to have issues.
The best part is he didn't mute his mic before he left.
That is even better. It's a...
Okay.
That's amazing. See, it'd just be great if there's a game on his desk that's still playing in the background as he's going.
It's all about having to press pause and going to assist your kids, right? Because right now he's off trying to calm down his child, and the game's still going if it doesn't have a pause.
Yeah, let me switch that over to you then, Jeff, because now you have older kids. I assume they're kind of sleeping through the night. Was there a time when did you try to play longer games when they were younger, or did you just give it up until they were 4 or 5, 3?
I tried to. That's a good point. The long game. Hey, welcome back, Gavin.
Hey.
But talking about the long game when they were younger, so when they were under 2 and not while they were sleeping through the night, but there would be little interruptions. I found certain games that had more mission-based story play, like Grand Theft Auto 5 was a good one because you could play a mission, set it down, complete it, and the story was kind of an overarching story, so you still kind of got the gist of, you're playing this thief or gangster that's going to eventually have an end game, right? So doing one or two missions and then setting it down and going back, you still had that sense of accomplishment. I've tried other games that, like Dragon Age, was horrible for that because there's so much dialogue and story and like little other books you can pick up and read all the background on each character. You can't take that all in and walk away and then get back into it.
Yeah, it's like
It's too
narrative
much.
overload.
Yeah, that one didn't work for me. I tried to pump 30 to 40 hours into it, and I still don't know what I'm doing. And a game with too many side quests, it doesn't work in this kind of life that we have now, where you only have an hour or two to kind of set aside and do something.
Although sometimes side quests are the nice little nibbles that you can get. If you find yourself in a situation where your attention is tentative, um, you can usually, in lieu of doing a longer, let's say 1 hour mission or something like that, you can do like a few side quests, and they kind of partition up your play session, so that way it's almost like a checkpoint system where it's like you do a side quest, check to make sure that everything's still good with the family, and then if you still have, if people are still napping or whatnot, if all's quiet on the Western Front, then you do another side quest. And sometimes they can work, but unfortunately they don't have the narrative payoff as, let's say, a full mission structure would.
I'm kind of having this vision of Gavin, like, with controller in his hand, like, sneaking over to the bedroom, like, you got
Everybody's still
like,
sleeping.
Excellent.
It's like when you're a kid and you're like reading comic books underneath sheets with a flashlight. Like, you should be asleep. You're supposed to be asleep, but you don't want to go to bed yet. So,
Yeah, I think that's what. So what's interesting about, like I mentioned, the crew is that kind of played into that nicely because technically there's a story, but it's really just a way to string together a series of races. It's not something you're going to get very invested in, and mostly it's just to get you into the world and eventually be doing the MMO stuff, but it's more towards go to this place, do this race, and you get this part. Now your car's better. Go to this place, different type of race, your car is better. And it's really up to you for your own pacing and not very involved in that sense. So yeah, it's pretty good to get in, hit it, and come out with enough depth where it's like this full-fledged world and big game with a bunch of people in it that it's not too shallow. So that was pretty great. And then, I can add on to Jeff's point where I was trying to play through Assassin's Creed 2, and it worked great in the sense that here's like the missions that I'm supposed to do, and I can just pause it and leave at any time. Problem being is that I came back to it after 2 weeks of dad duties, and it's like, what's happening right now? Like, where am I supposed to go? Like, what is all of this? Why is there a pile of bodies?
that
Did I do
series
that?
can be very daunting. Like, you look at that world map, and like the UI is so full of stuff, and you're just like, wow, there's so much, and it's like trying to keep track of your place in a really, really big like anthology of novels, but like the bookmark is just gone, and you're like, so where was I again? There was a thing, and I was doing stuff, and I guess they're mad at me, and I don't quite understand why. So yeah, it's really tough to get back to a game like that, and especially like I find myself, I'm even before having a child, I was one of those gamers that was easily distracted. So like I would play a game for a while and then pick up something new and shiny, and then leave that one, and then I have trouble getting back into it because it's been months since I picked it up, or even just a few weeks, and then it's like, oh, where was I again? It's like, Dishonored's great, but it's been like so long since and I don't know why I stopped playing it because I absolutely loved it. I got distracted by something, and then now I have to either start from the beginning, which I don't have time for, or try to piece together this foggy memory of a narrative.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's disheartening. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, it's a big commitment, right? Like, so you're having a kid, right? That's a commitment in itself, like a lifetime commitment. And
Yeah.
you try to commit to an 80-hour game, you really have to invest yourself. And that if you get a couple hours, an hour a week 2 hours a week in the beginning of it with a newborn, that's going to take you a year to finish that game. Like it's a long commitment, and other games have come out, more exciting stuff. Tech is always evolving, and you're kind of stuck with, this one game that you're trying to get to the end to. It's kind of, it puts you off a bit, right? And
Yeah.
I found that in the beginning, definitely, it was too much of a commitment to overcome.
Okay, but now,
Yeah.
and just to circle around on that, though, Jeff. So, like now, and we kind of covered it a bit already, but I mean, so in your new world where you have these two older boys and they're able to, take care of themselves a bit, they're a bit more calm, sleeping through the night. Like, have you found yourself willing to get into it, or is there still a lot of trepidation around a longer game?
And it's still kind of an obstacle because, like I said before, with Dragon Age, I tried to put enough time and effort into it to see if I could get over that climax in the game and get on to the end. But having you're having older boys that do go to bed at 7 o'clock and they're done and I can go game,
That
you're
sounds. By the way,
exhausted.
that sounds amazing. Well, just like
Yeah,
based
I
on
know.
Gavin's
Seven
interruption,
o'clock.
and we're late starting this podcast because my kid would not go to sleep.
Yeah.
So man, 7 o'clock and they go to bed. That's amazing.
Seven o'clock. They're in bed.
Or
I
even with
know.
the
I
fact
should.
that
Yeah,
like
that's it.
it's
You guys are gonna cry.
consistent.
Oh, it gets better. It's
It's
getting
the
better.
consistency that I'm marveled
It
at. Like,
does.
it's the fact that it's like, wait, every time? Like, because right now it's like,
Yeah.
okay, we got enough milk in her that she finally went to sleep, and she's gonna wake up, Lord knows when, needing more milk, and just like that, it's like she's hungry again. She's hungry because she's just growing. But just that idea of like the thing you take for granted before the kid's born is that sense of, oh, I can schedule my life. So if I want to take on this game, I can schedule it into my week. But as soon as you have a kid, there's the variable, like the kid is the X in the equation of your weekly schedule that then just changes everything. And even for not just for like leisure activity, like with playing games, but I find even for myself, like trying to find a bit of time here and there for doing work. Before I was a very scheduled person, where now I'm just kind of like going with the flow and finding when can I do it. Like even with games before, it's like, oh well, I usually play this time to this time, in a day because it fits well. It's not interrupting anything. It's not taking me away from responsibilities. But when your responsibility is a variable, that changes everything, and then you have this new scheduling system in your life that's just complete anarchy. But it's what you got to do. It's your responsibility. So it kind of makes things like keeping a schedule and following a narrative in a game a lot more difficult.
Yeah, and that's where for a while I was trying to find. It was actually one of the games I was going to talk about, but I was trying to find a mobile game with some depth to it for that reason. So I didn't want
Hmm.
something just like Flappy Bird because it was eventually gets it's kind of fun, but it gets irritating. So there were these moments when I'm just holding the baby for 2 hours as he sleeps, and I wanted something where it's kind of I can get into enough, but had shallow enough that every time I come back in, it just kind of kept moving.
Hmm.
And yeah, and like one that I discovered actually, share my screen here for a video of it, was I don't know if you guys have heard about this one. So it's called 80 Days. So this is like loosely based on the old novel Around the World in 80 Days iOS app, and it's basically you're a chauffeur for this rich baron or this some sort of rich man who's now engaged in a bet who bets he can go travel the entire world within 80 days. And there's just like 1,000 different ways that you can go. So you'll start off and you take a quick trip down to Spain, and then you decide to go onto a boat, and the boat takes you over to somewhere in Italy, but then you jaunt up to Russia because it's going to save you 4 days. Each time you can buy and you can sell various items from the various places that then fund the trip. Like the best part is like you can end up someplace in the middle of nowhere desert, and you just have to sit there and work for 4 or 5 like days straight trying to get enough money to get your ticket. So it's just like phenomenal. Like yeah, it's fascinating. So it's this resource management, travel planning, even like in interpersonal game because you have to keep a
Sounds
good.
like a hippie backpacking.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Hey
Except it's
man,
like
whatever, I'll work for it. Just like, can I
whatever.
ride in the
Yeah,
back of your chicken truck?
that's about it, man. It's like shining shoes, like in the lobby for a little bit of money and trying to like sell and peddle, which is funny. You can also like go take money out from the bank from the rich guy, but
Wow.
eventually, like you can strain your relationship with him, where all your conversations with him now become very terse. Because like he's really pissed off, he keeps spending his money, and he doesn't like how you're handling the situation. So, but what's great about it, so it was the individual interactions. Like you're generally doing this big trip, so you've kind of already laid a path, but ultimately you are where you are. You have this list of items, and you have to figure the next step. And yeah, it was kind of enough that it really helped out as one of the first games that I played within the first 2 months. As far like anything beyond that had any kind of depth to it. Um, yeah, and it's kind of that perfect mix, and it's great to see that on the mobile device because the positioning of it, as in like always in my pocket, so that I can play the thing, was
Mhm.
critical. Because otherwise, there's just no way that I can do it. Like I can't drop the baby off and then just come down to the den where the gaming system is. Like I had to have. He's asleep. I have this 20 to 40 minutes, perhaps. Like just get into it immediately.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know the. Have you guys found that with mobile games? Like, Gavin, have you been using your phone and like apps more, or have you still been able to like sneak away to your system for
Not
the
really, because I
experiences?
don't really have to sneak away to my system. We have a very small apartment, so it's
Compared to
kind
the
of
mansion, I do
compared
have
to
a
the
sprawling mansion. I should mention,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's like it takes you a day to walk across it. So,
So I find myself often in the same room anyways. If I'm holding her, like I tend not to have a game on the go, um, just because like the mobile devices I have, they're a little long in the tooth, so their capabilities are somewhat hindered.
is it a
Luckily,
flip? Is it a flip Nokia? Because Snake
yeah,
is
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. Flip, it's a brick. No, but no, actually, the one thing I have been doing, oddly enough, is on I have a Surface tablet, and I've been reading comics, like comicsology, like through them, and that's been good because it's something that I can have kind of beside me with whatever hand is free. Um, and then yeah, that's kind of when I consume other entertainment media, like watching stuff on Netflix or whatnot. So I find that's kind of that opportunity, and when I have like hands-free time, that's when I kind of do the game stuff. Um, but that's kind of how I was even pre baby. I've never really been heavy into mobile games, not much because I don't like them, but just because my appetite is satisfied quite well by what time I do get to sit down with a controller. Yeah.
Yeah, was that Jeff on your side when you guys were coming up, your kids growing? Was that anything that you had used as far as like mobile apps, tablets, or
Yeah,
phones, or?
mobile Yeah, mobile apps was definitely involved. Having two little ones that were bacteria sponges, the best app I found was Plague Inc.
Oh, jeez.
Infecting the world with one bacteria at a time.
If my kids
And I
suffer,
know
the whole world suffers with me. Like, just like,
as bad as it sounds, you name that virus after your kid,
oh,
and it
jeez.
just goes out and infects everyone to feel like you
They need
do
to
at
have
that
like
point.
Plague Inc. Kindergarten Edition, where it's just you're just tracking the common cold
Oh,
through like a
jeez.
kindergarten classroom, and rather than like breaking the map up by regions on the globe, it's just like areas in the classroom that are like bacteria
Right,
rich,
exactly.
like
And
the
That would be
sandbox or
perfect.
like the
like
bricks.
the real score is like when you infect their homes and like just the whole town like shuts down because like you've sent out
Yeah.
this plague as like the kid carriers.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, anything at daycare or kindergarten that they pick out is I don't think they have a vaccine for it. I don't know what they come home with. It's just it infects you and it makes you horrible and it sucks your energy. So having a quick mobile app of Plague Inc. I think was the best app for me when they were
All right.
growing up.
Duly noted.
Yeah, if I write that down.
Yeah. I actually do. I have a feeling that I will probably end up going the route of like one I've been wanting to check out is that Fallout Shelter app. Like that's one I've been interested in because it is something that's like bite-sized gaming, but it's part of a like a chain of games that I really enjoy. I think that that could be something that I'd want to be getting into. And yeah, like you know, obviously wasted my fair share of hours with Fruit Ninja and Jetpack Joyride and all the half brick time sinks. Um, but yeah, I guess yeah, it kind of it's like you have to decide where you find your time to game because like we only have so many hours a day, even just general responsibilities. It's like do we stockpile all of those free minutes into a good chunk to sit with a console, or do you just grab those little bits here and there with something that's readily available and in your pocket? And if you do go the console route, as far as some sit down, like hearty meal of game intake, are we at the stage now where we still enjoy those larger games that are supposed to be 80 hours, but do we see games through to the end, or do we just get enough of it to have that experience with the mechanics, with the gameplay elements, with the narrative and the characters, and then move on to something else? Like, do we need to complete games anymore? Or even can we complete games anymore and still stay up to date and not be playing the same game? Like with, as Jeff mentioned, like the amount of time that we have, you'd be playing a game for a year or two. If you're playing a game like Assassin's Creed, like 3 new Assassin's Creeds would have came out in that amount of time. And it's keeping up with that market and keeping up with those franchises can be almost impossible.
Yeah, and if I would like us to circle back around and talk about the completeness thing, but I did want to segue into something around that dealt a lot with timing that I'm kind of struggling with, and that's kind of and Jeff, actually, I'd like you to talk a bit in a second about Rocket League with regard to that, and that's just around mastery. So, like I've been able to get in a decent number of games of Hearthstone, which works pretty well as a game around this, where because the matches are like 5 minutes, like 8 minutes, and it's pretty satisfying, the games, especially once you kind of get some of the basic mechanics and you're putting things together. The challenge is now like it's at such a point that for me to kind of get to any next level or to kind of progress or in some ways even to enjoy it, because now that I have some sort of level to it, anybody they put me against is of that same level and they're much better than I am. So it's like, so in order to kind of enjoy this further, I would need to devote time to training, ultimately, like expertise. Like I would need to learn how to become better at this game. And amongst my gaming time, it's what do you do with that? Like what kind? You have that super finite amount of time to play games. You're going to be spending waking hours trying to become a master at some sort of game, as opposed to something that's kind of fun, a bit more story driven, and you're able to get in, play a couple rounds, have your fun, and get out. And Jeff, I don't know if you've I know Rocket League, it's not exactly... well, I guess I've heard that they're starting to talk about doing that for gaming league with Rocket League, like having like actual championships.
Yeah,
I don't know if you found that at all, like with... Yeah. So I don't know, like, Jeff, if you found like some limitation around your skills with it and like you feel limited as far as how much you can participate.
Well, yeah, there definitely is like a level at which, you walk into a game and you have people that are with Rocket League. It's just for those that don't know, it's just cars with a soccer ball and you're trying to score on each other's net. So if you walk into this game and you have someone that's practiced for quite some time with it, they'll be flying off the walls, using their boost to destroy you, scoring goals left, right, and center. So there is a barrier for that part of it, but there are different kinds of matches that you can play. So you could do a 4-on-4 and just hope to God that one of those players that is masterful is on your team. So they usually balance out in that aspect. But if you're definitely doing like a 1-on-1, you can see kind of flaws in that game where it's not always balanced, but it is fun. And again, it's like a 5-minute game. You're in, you're out, you're on to the next, or you can set it down and walk away, and you still have that. There's no story. It's not going to be depth. It's just you have a little bit of fun. You laugh at what you're doing. You're again scoring in somebody else's net with your car and a soccer ball. So, and then you can earn little things after each match, even if you lose, just to decorate your car. So there's some sense of progression, I guess. Like I have a top hat on my car, so it's pretty cool. But I can set it down and walk away and know that I got that top hat on my own terms and on to the next game, or on to take care of my kid, or go to sleep, or whatever. But it's 5 minutes in and out, and you're good.
Okay, so you haven't found it to be your lack of skill or like lack of like
No,
practice at it limiting.
there's definitely, like, you could get better at it, which is, I guess, the depth of it. So it could be as simple as you running around trying to knock the ball, but it is pretty balanced, and you can sort, like, filter out what games you want to do and who you want to go against. But
Is it
again, if you
always
choose a
team
four on
based or is it
four,
one on one?
you can do 1-on-1, 2-2, 3-3, all the way up to
Okay.
4-4, and then they get into leagues, so you can have ranked games, which I'm not
Wow.
going to touch ever. But um,
I think what we should
unless you have
do is
some extra money.
maybe what we'll do is we should form a team and get into it and just show how terrible we are. Just
Oh,
like
there you go.
Yeah.
just watch what happens with like new fathers try to like competitively play. So, best part is like we'll have our kids in the background crying because like they're seeing their fathers lose like so terribly. Like,
Just one car's
Daddy,
in the corner, not doing anything, because that person left to
Yeah.
you
take care
suck,
of their kid.
Dad. Okay,
Like,
so
So
that's
yeah,
saying
it's a
she
good
doesn't have to
game.
go
It's
do
a good game
diapers.
for that.
okay, so that's like that's
Yeah.
reassuring because it's one that I wanted to play, but I almost thought that yeah, because commonly I just find Hearthstone to be kind of daunting in that sense. So I didn't know if I wanted to have another game that I'm terrible at compared to everybody else. The Yeah, Gavin, unless you have something to add to the mastery part, did you have any games you've been playing lately you want to call to mention?
Um, Not really. Like I haven't really been doing much in regards to multiplayer games lately. But in the past I have found that as being like I've had times where I haven't been able to master a particular game well enough just due to like my own work responsibilities. Because like when you work from home, sometimes it's like a child in itself. Um, Not near,
That's
well, close to as much tears, not quite as much, but the crying levels are negligible. Um, but yeah, I've found that there have been certain games that I've just been turned off from because I'll just get schooled trying to play them, and I won't feel any sense of accomplishment or feel like I'm contributing at all. I find probably the best example of it would be like the difference between Battlefield or Call of Duty. Like a game like Call of Duty, I found the way that it's structured is it really rewards the players who practice and stick with it all the time. Somebody who just will casually play a match here and there, they're done. So like with Call of Duty, I would find like I would go and try to do a match. I'd get paired up with a lot of really talented players, but like if I'm indoors, I'm getting shot in the face. If I decide to run outside to give myself a little bit more distance between the other players, I'm getting like just turned into juice by a helicopter. So there was nowhere I could go where I would feel like I would have any form of fighting chance. In comparison, a game like Battlefield, I find with the size of the maps and the design of the game and the idea of teamwork, like with the medic reviving people or the engineer repairing vehicles, even if like you are like the Gomer Pyle of the team, you still feel like you're doing something. You don't feel as useless, and you don't feel like you're really contributing to it. So I found like with a game like that, you could hop in occasionally and be a little bit more of a sporadic player in it, and still derive some form of entertainment. Whereas I find sometimes with more intense, like twitchy multiplayer games, I find I don't have the time to practice those anymore, and I don't find the enjoyment in them anymore because of that, just not having the time. And to be totally honest, I don't really miss it. Like it's one of those things
Hmm.
where there's things that I'd rather be doing with my day, time I'd rather be spending with other people, or even on other games. Because there's so many amazing games out there that uh, there's no point in forcing yourself to love one when there's other games just on your own shelf that will entertain you and give you some sense of enjoyment. So yeah, like I think especially with something like with Hearthstone, as you mentioned, like that one's a one-on-one. So like if you get paired against somebody, if that person's way above you, then you're done, and you don't really have a fighting chance.
Oh, and it is like, man, some of the players on there, it's just so
Yeah,
humiliating. Like just how badly. Like,
yeah.
there's
And
like
it
some
comes
point
to
like just
enthusiasm too. Like they're super enthusiastic about this game, and they might have more leisure time than you, or of their leisure time, they devote it solely to that game. Like they don't play anything else. So if that's all they do in their off time, if they have even a few more hours a week than you, and that's all they focus on in their off time, they're going to be better than you. It's just
what
they put in the hours and they got rewarded for it by being really good at that game.
yeah what
But that
at
kind of
least with
sucks for
like
you.
see at least with Rocket League. So the problem with like Hearthstone 2 is that it like you'll be playing sometimes and the guy will just put out this card like kill all of your characters, and then he lays out another card. It's like give yourself 50 characters, and then he plays another card. All 50 characters have 1,000 hits, and then you're dead. You're like, so as much skill as I could possibly have, unless I have the cards, like
Yeah.
there's not much you're gonna
Right.
do. So some sort like on some level, especially with grindy games or games like Hearthstone that you can kind of pay to win. Well,
Yeah.
hold on, I want to retract that. You can't pay to win. Like there's strategy involved, but ultimately, if you just have amazing cards, like you have this much better chance to succeed. So I
Yeah.
guess like in comparison to that versus something like Rocket League where you get hats, but it's not like you get a card that's 5 times as fast, which would
Yeah. It's
reward
strictly
somebody who's
cosmetic.
grinded. Yeah, which is great. Yeah, so especially for with our times and responsibilities, something where you got to grind to get the things that are going to allow you to be able to compete. Not to mention then the study hours you would need to put in to possibly learn how to win. Yeah, just some things really start to follow the field of possibilities.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, I have bought Rocket League. I have not played it once yet, so
Oh, you have to. You'll see my top hat.
I can see. Yeah, I'm terribly enthused about your
But
top hat now.
you make a good point though. Like with the Hearthstone, and you can earn a better tool set, right? If you
Mhm.
put your hours in and you get more cards.
Yeah.
With Rocket League, they did release DLC that was paid, but it doesn't give you anything special. So there's different cars, but they're all the same. Like
Yeah.
nothing's faster, bigger, bulkier, whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that's a way to
It's
play it
all
because then
just
it's
visual.
Yeah, I think even
right.
with your Battlefield too, Gavin. I guess ultimately, I don't think there's you can't pay to have a better gun.
Oh
I
no,
don't
they had
think with
that. They started a few years back where like you could get like the platinum edition, where you get a really good kind of. You'd have a better starting kit. So some of the weapons you'd have access to, and some of the rifles would just be better. And they're rifles that you would usually have to grind for a while to unlock. But because you bought the special platinum edition, you get those things automatically right out of the box. Um, so like that would sometimes get in the way. It wouldn't. I didn't find it really threw as big of a wrench in the works as it probably could have, because some of the main weapons you start with in the game were at least strong enough. A lot of my recollection is quite fuzzy too. It's been a couple of years since I've played, but yeah, it was a game where you could get to that level if you worked hard enough. Their matchmaking was usually pretty decent. Like they would keep you with people who are around close to the same skill level as you too. I think that's also something that developers are starting to get better with. Is like instead of it just being whoever's got the better ping on their server, put them together. Now it's more of like, okay, who's spent more hours playing it, who's at a better rank than the other. They kind of look at your kill death ratios more, and just or even like with racing games, it's like, yeah, this person's really good at what they do. This person may be a little bit noobish, so let's keep them over in the kiddie pool. Um, I think that's kind of a necessary component to the style of gaming.
hmm.
When any competitive gaming, it's like any competitive sport. You wouldn't have a complete novice person who's trying his best to join the minor leagues. You wouldn't throw him into the World Series. You wouldn't have like a brand new tennis player and then all of a sudden send her off to Wimbledon before she's even laced up her shoes for the first time.
Yeah. Well, you
There's a
You clearly haven't watched a lot of Disney movies because that happens all the time, and it's amazing. Just throw him in, home run.
Yeah, look,
His daddy loves
Rookie
him,
of
and
the
like
Year as an exception.
Rookie of
With
the
with botched rotator cuff surgery, anything is possible.
That's perfect.
Now I got to watch that movie again. I hope you guys are proud. It's
Hey man,
okay.
apparently Netflix with your baby's your thing, so it's perfect. I'm
Yeah,
glad we
it is. I'm going
built
to
up
show
your
her
queue tonight.
all the great classic cinema, starting with
Oh.
Rookie of the Year.
So you see a kid with a little bit of luck and a lot of wishing.
Yeah.
Anything is possible.
Oh no, you got to show the wizard though. If you're talking movies, you got to show the
Yeah,
wizard.
that too.
Get them into games, right?
Right off the bat.
I've never seen that movie.
Wow,
Oh,
really?
oh,
I'm
let's stop
sorry.
this right now.
Whoa.
Am I kicked off of the
That's
show?
like... Oh,
You need to go watch it right now. Just stop everything and report back.
Virgin Mary over here. My
Sorry,
goodness.
let me update my lower third 1 second. That's not.
Yeah. No, we gotta get you on that. That will be the new thing. We'll keep a running tally of all the movies Trevor hasn't seen, but most certainly.
That's going. There we go. So updated the lower third.
There you go.
That looks-
Perfect.
That's, you know what? That's good.
That
That's,
was-
that's your path for not having seen it, for missing
for
that
the-
portion of your childhood. It's like, okay, it's like writing it on the chalkboard.
For those listening at home, I've changed the title below my face to say "Has not watched The Wizard," as I will wear that around my neck like a badge of shame.
I'll send you a power glove. You need to watch it.
Jeez. Yeah, gentlemen. Unless there's something kind of pressing or top of mind, I might suggest that we wrap it here for this episode.
No, I think that's about it. Like, I think there's been some. I think the main topic being, can we still play big games? The
Yeah,
answer
actually,
would be, I guess.
Closing thoughts, Gavin. Yeah, closing thoughts, Gavin.
Closing thoughts? Yeah, it's definitely possible. I think if you're playing games that are partitioned properly in regards to their narrative, as Jeff mentioned with something like Dragon Age, where you have these really long dialogue sequences that are not really skippable, nor should they be, because there's some important stuff going on with the story. Games like that might be a little tough. It might be you have to wait for your kids to be a little bit closer to high school and not wanting your attention and not wanting anything to do with you. That's when those games might be possible again. But games where it's more of a mission-based structure, for as Jeff did for an example, is like Grand Theft Auto. I've been finding with Dying Light, the mission structure is quite nice, and the partition is a digestible size for the amount of time that I have. I think games like that, it's if you break it up into smaller pieces, we can still play those games and find enjoyment and still be able to follow the story while not neglecting our family. But as long as I think the developers are able to partition it in a certain way, we can take advantage of that. It really just comes down to who their main audience is, and sometimes it's a happy accident that they partition it the way they do.
And Jeff, yourself, and closing thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree with most with what Gavin said there. Long games, really, 40 to 80 hours is somewhat not doable at this point in fatherhood. But again, mission-based ones, they work well. You can do one, step out. More story-driven ones, I would just leave for now. Maybe watch a run on Twitch if you can. Kind of tune in that way. But you're kind of shooting for like the middle of the road, 12 to 15 hour kind of story-driven game. If it's not story-driven, more like Rocket League. So you can get in, get your quick fix, get a match in, get out.
Yeah.
That would be my experience, at least, right?
Yeah, and I think there's some diamonds in the rough too. Like I don't want to keep mentioning the crew. I'm kind of embarrassed mentioning it too, because as far as it was not well received.
Get good reviews.
It was not very well received. But as far as
hasn't watched The Wizard and plays the crew.
It plays the crew. Should I re-update it?
Wow.
So, but ultimately,
we're watching Trevor's gaming cred just crumble in front of us.
Just like first episode, I really just ruined.
On the next episode of Noob Gamer, Dad.
But anyways, I was looking for a driving fix, and it just kind of worked for me. And I think that's probably one of the things to mention, as far as just it's going to be a lot of trial and error. And I think the Twitch avenue is really interesting, Jeff, because if you think you might like it, if you're able to kind of get into it, watch a couple of videos of it, see if there's like a free weekend, because some of them, you're going to be able to get your quick hits. You're going to be able to feel like this is meaningful enough. I'm enjoying this participation. On other ones, you're just going to have to drop on the floor. And I think the three of us have mentioned cases of both. And, again, with the crew, for myself, it was just something that it had just enough of what I was looking for with the driving game and missions. And I was able to get in, do it, leave, feel satisfied. And it worked out great. So ultimately, it's a lot of trial and error. And I think, fortunately, with the current age of gaming and the constant streaming and YouTubing of everything, there's a lot of potential to kind of vet what's going to work. And ultimately, with our show here, we're going to be talking every week about games that are really working, especially with like big titles that are coming out, if it's working as a new dad, if it's not working. So hopefully we ourselves can contribute to that, being new dad gamings. Gaming? How do new fathers gaming, new dads game? I'm trying to turn into like the verb of it, or like description. Anyways, we're new dads and we're gaming, and we're gonna
Sleep deprived people.
Yeah.
Gaming.
Also not good at jokes.
Form words trying art.
So everybody, that's been this episode. Thanks so much. If you'd like to get in contact with us or send us a question, please check us out on our website, newdadgaming.com. We do a show every week. I am Trevor with a 3-month-old.
I'm Gavin with a 1-month-old.
And I'm Jeff with a 5 and 2.5-year-old.
And that's the bright, bright future. How many, sorry, just quickly as we close, how many nights an hour do they sleep?
How many?
We got seven solid hours.
Oh, God.
Wow.
It's so good.
My kingdom for 7 hours.
Yeah. All right, everybody.
Although I have to give some credit. Our little one is a pretty good sleeper. Once she's happy, we're able to get a good chunk of sleep. But
as long as
7 hours is still way. If she slept for 7 hours, we'd be concerned.
Yeah, as long as there's not a podcast going on, right, Gavin?
Well, that too. Yeah, she can sense that.
Perfect.
She's anxious. She's a Mike hog, so we got to keep her at a distance.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.